Have you ever stopped to think about the unseen connections, the invisible threads that might link communities across a whole continent? Not, fiber optics or satellites, but just the air itself.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it?
Yeah, and today we're tuning into exactly that. We're doing a deep dive into the world of medium wave radio, specifically across Africa.
And this isn't some dusty look back at old technology. It's really a live snapshot.
Right. It tells you about communication, culture, even politics playing out right now over these radio waves.
Exactly. And our main guide for this is pretty specific. It's the Africa on Medium Wave Summer 2025 list.
Compiled by Tony Rogers for the British DX Club, and crucially, it's very up to date.
That's the key thing. Updated June 15th, 2025. So really recent. This is what radio enthusiasts, DXers they call themselves, use to track broadcasts. It's a living document.
Okay, so our mission today for you listening is basically to unpack this source. We'll pull out the key insights, give you a shortcut to understanding what medium wave radio tells us about Africa today.
You get some surprising facts, hopefully a well-informed perspective, and pretty quickly, too.
All right, let's start with the big picture. The guide reveals the sort of shifting landscape for African medium wave, and the first really big takeaway is, well, a general decline.
It's quite stark, actually. The guide lists a lot of countries, over 30, in fact, explicitly stated as having no medium wave stations currently on the air.
Over 30, wow.
Yeah, we're talking places like Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Mali, Senegal, Togo, a huge chunk of West and Central Africa.
Yeah.
Also island nations like Cape Verde, Seychelles.
So it really paints a picture of changing priorities in communication.
Definitely. And it's not just general absence. We see specific stations shutting down.
Like on Ascension Island?
Right. BBC Radio Ascension on 1485 kilohertz, Volcano Radio on 1602. They were switched off way back end of 2009.
And Malawi Broadcasting Corporation, MBC, I remember reading something about that.
Yes, they're actively phasing out AM transmission. AM is amplitude modulation, that's the tech here.
Yeah.
Their 756 kilohertz frequency was already off by April 2023. And then an April 1st, 2025 report said they plan to be completely off on medium wave services in the next 2 months.
So very recently.
Although interestingly, someone did confirm their 540 kilohertz was still active back in October 2024. So, things can linger.
We're also seeing global policy decisions having an impact, right? Like with USAGM.
Absolutely. The U.S. Agency for Global Media, they shut down their stations in Botswana and Djibouti just this March 2025. And São Tomé closed last July 2024.
Part of a bigger plan to reduce their footprint.
Exactly. And look at Libya. The few medium wave transmitters left after Gaddafi, they're off air now too. Benghazi, Tripoli, gone.
And Reunion Premier.
Off since 2018. Same story for Radio St. Helena, closed back in 2012. And Madagascar's main MW, 630 kilohertz, inactive. Seychelles 1368, also inactive.
So what does this broad decline really tell us?
Well, it likely points to shifts towards, internet, mobile phones, digital alternatives that are often cheaper or more practical. Medium wave is maybe just becoming less viable economically or technologically in many of these places.
Okay, so that's a pretty clear picture of decline. But I'm guessing that's not the whole story. Where is medium wave holding on, and why?
You're right. It's definitely not a complete wipeout. And actually, one of the most interesting things in the guide wasn't just decline, but come back. Like in Djibouti.
Really? What happened there?
Well, both of RTD's medium wave transmitters, 1116 kilohertz and 1539 kilohertz, they came back online in late 2022.
After how long?
After nearly 9 years off the air. It's quite something.
Wow. Are they still on?
Well, the latest suggests is channel 1 on 1539 might be off again. But channel 2, that's 1116 kilohertz, seems to be operating. 1500 to 2100 UTC, that's the standard time reference. Mostly in Afar, maybe some French too.
And that kind of detail shows how this information is gathered, right? The DXers are constantly checking.
Exactly. They use tools like Kiwi SDRs, which are basically online radios anyone can access, to confirm frequencies. They did this recently, October 2024, for places like Angola, Eritrea, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Mauritius, Mozambique. It keeps the map alive, constantly updated.
But it must be difficult sometimes. The guide mentions challenges, like in Nigeria.
Oh, definitely. Nigeria is tricky. The status of lots of their medium wave stations is just unclear. Reports are few and far between, as the guide puts it.
And Angola, too.
Yeah, their provincial stations, 1290 kilohertz, 1458 kilohertz. Hard to know if they're still running.
And conflict zones must make it even harder. Sudan, for example.
Precisely. The civil war there likely means some transmitters are down, although stations on 666 and 963 kilohertz were still heard in March 2025. It just highlights the difficulty of tracking things in real time, but also maybe the resilience of these signals sometimes.
Which brings us to what medium wave actually reveals, beyond just being on or off. The voices, the stories. If it's declining in some places, what does its persistence tell us about things like national identity, language?
Now that's where it gets really interesting. Take Algeria. Radio Algerian, the state broadcaster, set up in '86. They have 3 national channels.
Reflecting the country's languages.
Exactly. Chain 1 in Arabic, Chain 2 in Berber, Chain 3 in French. Right there, you see the linguistic mix built into the national service.
What about reaching outside Algeria?
They do that too. They've got thematic channels, culture, Quran. But Radio Algeria International is key. Launched 2007, broadcasts 247.
With multiple languages.
Yep. Arabic, French, English, Spanish. On 3 medium wave frequencies, 531, 507.6, 891 kilohertz.
Any examples of English times?
Sure, the guideless segments like 1330 to 1400 UTC, then again 1900 to 1930 UTC. Sometimes there are Muslim prayers or special discussions instead. It shows a very deliberate international strategy.
And they even have a youth station.
Jil FM, yeah. Algeria's first youth station, mainly Arabic, but some French and Tamazight too, on 549 kilohertz. Shows they're thinking about different demographics as well.
Okay, from Algeria's very structured approach, let's look at Egypt. Seems like they have an even bigger network. What's going on there?
Egypt's National Media Authority has a huge medium wave presence. It's not just standard programs. They've got specialized services. Educational radio, Voice of the Arabs, youth and sports radio, Holy Quran radio, Middle East radio.
Wow, that's diverse.
And even Calhoun radio, dedicated to the famous singer, just for a few hours in the evening on 936 kilohertz. Plus regional stations. It shows a massive commitment to using medium wave for all sorts of cultural, educational, religious needs.
And specific listening patterns.
Yeah, like Voice of the Arabs on 621 kilohertz is usually monitored, 0800 to 1200 UTC, and lots of local stations actually relay the Holy Quran radio overnight. It's a very practical use of the frequencies.
That's incredible reach. Eritrea also seems committed to linguistic diversity.
Very much so. Eritrean Radio, Dimsi Hafash, Voice of the Broad Masses, it's state-run, and has a history as a clandestine station supporting liberation. Now it runs 2 networks covering a lot of languages. Program 1 has Tigrinya, Tigray, Kunama. Program 2 has Arabic, Afar, Amharic, Oromo, Saho, Bailin, Hedreb, Nara, and Somali.
That's a huge range for one country.
It really is. It shows how medium wave can reach different communities, maybe where other infrastructure isn't as developed.
Ethiopia also sounds complex. State radio, regional stations, private ones.
Exactly. You've got the main Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation, then regional stations like Amhara Radio or Radio Oromia in Oromo.
And others.
Yes. Fana Broadcasting Corporate is interesting. Started as a ruling coalition station, now private. Mostly Amharic, some Oromo, Somali, Afar, plus purely educational stations like Gimbi Educational Radio. And even the Voice of the Tigray Revolution, the official station for the Tigray region.
So medium wave there is really a mix of national, regional, educational, even political voices.
A real patchwork, all using this one medium.
Now, Mozambique offers another angle on local identity, doesn't it? Radio Mozambique is the state network.
All right, Antena Nacional is their main service. But the crucial part is their provincial stations.
Why are they so important?
Because they broadcast in tons of local languages, besides Portuguese. We're talking Makua, Chengana and Dao, Sena, Nyanja, Swahili Yao, many others.
Wow.
They connect to the national news feed. But the local programming in local languages is vital. It shows medium wave directly supporting linguistic diversity, bridging national and local life.
That local connection is definitely a unique strength. And for reaching out, Tunisia seems strategic too.
Yeah, Radio Tunis, specifically RTCI Radio Tunis Chain International on 963 kilohertz. It runs 24 hours.
And the languages.
They have a very specific hourly schedule. French, German, English. The English slot is 1303 to 1400 UTC, Italian, Spanish. It's clearly a structured international outreach.
And Lesotho.
Simple but effective.
Yeah.
LNBS Radio Lesotho. State broadcaster, 24 hours, in Sesotho on 639 kilohertz. Just dedicated national language service.
That seems to be a common thread, using MW for core national communication and culture.
Absolutely. Especially where digital access might still be patchy.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly. Beyond national identity, what about religious and commercial broadcasting? We mentioned Trans World Radio, TWR.
Right, they have a big presence. In Benin, their West Africa transmitting station Watts broadcasts Christian programs on 1566 and 1476 kilohertz.
In local languages, too.
Yes, and quite a few. Yoruba, Igbo, Fulani, Hausa, Kanuri, plus African English. And TWR in Eswatini, broadcasting since 1974 on 1170 kilohertz. They have specific times for Shona, English, and Zulu. It shows how faith-based groups use MW effectively to reach diverse groups over wide areas.
South Africa, though, is different. You mentioned the state broadcaster, SABC, has no medium wave presence.
It's really unique. While many African states maintain MW for national reach, South Africa's landscape is dominated by commercial and religious stations.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, post-apartheid, South Africa saw a big shift towards commercial media, a more independent scene. So you get stations like Cape Talk in Cape Town on 567 kilohertz, commercial news, talk, phone-ins, very popular.
And religious stations.
Radio Pulpit Radio Cancel on 657 kilohertz, big Christian station, broadcasts in English, Afrikaans, Zulu, Xhosa.
What else is on the band there?
LM Radio on 702 kilohertz, playing oldies, lifetime memories, 50s to 80s hits. Interestingly, it has Mozambican and South African presenters showing that cross-border cultural connection.
Any others?
Magic 828 AM in Cape Town, independent, less talk, more music, classic rock, adult contemporary, and Radio Islam on 1548 kilohertz in Johannesburg, serving the Muslim community with news, religious shows, talk.
So even without the state, medium wave is clearly still a viable, active platform in South Africa, just different.
Exactly. It's found its niche in the commercial and community sectors there.
And Tanzania has Radio Free Africa?
Yes, on 1377 kilohertz, news, talk, music, 24 hours, Swahili and English. And notably, it's a Voice of America affiliate, another international link.
This also touches on geopolitical situations, Western Sahara, for instance.
Right.
The source is careful to describe it neutrally, right? Disputed, partly Moroccan-occupied.
Yes, and the radio landscape reflects that tension perfectly.
So on one frequency.
You have SNRT Radio Americaine, broadcasting from Laayoune on 711 kilohertz. Morocco calls this the Southern Provinces. It's 24 hours, Arabic, maybe some local tribal languages. It's asserting the Moroccan presence.
And on another frequency.
You have the National Radio of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic on 1550 kilohertz. This is run by the Polisario Front, pushing for independence.
Where does it broadcast from?
From a Sahrawi refugee camp in Rabuni, over the border in Algeria. Broadcasts in Arabic and Hassania, specific hours, 0700, 1300, and 1700, 2300 UTC.
So medium wave there is literally reflecting the conflict on the ground, two opposing voices on the airwaves.
It's a stark example of radio as a political tool, yes.
Finally, there's still a European presence in some territories linked to Africa.
Right. Canary Islands, Ceuta, Melilla, geographically African, politically Spanish. You hear Spanish national radio, R&E, commercial stations like Cope, Ayers, all broadcasting 24/7 in Spanish from there.
And elsewhere.
Mauritius has the BBC World Service. Still going strong, 24 hours in English on 100-375 kilohertz from Bagara.
And on Rodriguez Island.
Which is part of Mauritius, yeah. NBC runs Rodriguez FM on 1206 kilohertz. Also, 24 hours in French, English, and significantly Rodriguez Creole, another example of serving a specific local language community. These are all echoes of historical ties, ongoing connections.
So wrapping this up, we've seen this really interesting mix. A general decline in medium wave across much of Africa, definitely.
But contrasted with this remarkable persistence in certain places, often for very specific, crucial reasons.
Like broadcasting in multiple national or, importantly, local languages, connecting religious communities, even being a platform for competing political narratives.
Absolutely. It gives you these deep insights into national identity, linguistic diversity, politics, religion, commerce. It's really a testament to the enduring utility of these airwaves, even now.
Even when we think everything's moved online or to satellite.
Right. It shows that older tech can still have a powerful, specific role.
So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does this selective survival, this specialized use of medium wave, really tell us about a region's priorities, its challenges, maybe even its unwritten stories?
And maybe how these seemingly old-fashioned radio waves connect to other networks of information, perhaps less visible ones, that are shaping things today.
Something to think about.